panel to be as interactive as possible. So when we do open up the panel for audience questions, please indicate that you have a question using the raise hand function. And if you do have a question and raise your hand, please prepare to unmute your mic and ask that question when prompted to do so. So that being said, I'd like to introduce the two panelists that we currently have here. First, we have Liz McRobian, who is the Senior Marketing Manager of Media Strategy at Paramount, as well as Matt Gray, who is the People Experience Curator at TBWA. So thank you so much for being here, guys. And if I could have you guys just start off by introducing yourself and telling us about your organization, including what area of marketing you specialize in.
Sure. Thank you for the introduction. I'm really excited to be here with you guys as a fellow Trojan. So go us. So let me just get into a little bit about myself. So I have about 10 years of experience in marketing within the entertainment industry. Specifically, I have worked both brand side as well as the agency side over the years. I am currently at Paramount Plus, and I basically with my team put together full funnel 360 marketing campaigns across all of Paramount Plus's original series and films. So with that said, if you have seen a Paramount Plus ad within the last few years, my team probably had something to do with it. And yeah, that is what brought me here. I'll pass it to Matt, I guess.
I'm Matthew Gray. I'm a USC graduate, class of 2012. I have a non-traditional route into advertising. I actually graduated from Annenberg with a focus in communication and public relations. I started off in PR, did PR for a couple of years. Wasn't crazy about PR. I just wasn't in love with it as much as I thought I was. There were certain ideas that I was kind of sold and just wasn't in love with the experience at first. So I actually went into education. So I taught, I've done business development, I've done nonprofit organizations. I've been working with TBWA Chiat Day LA. I know it's a mouthful, but most people just refer to us as Chiat Day LA as an easier way, or Chiat LA. I've been with Chiat about 3 years now, working in advertising. I started off as an account coordinator, working with, the account side of things and really talking about like how the brand's ideas are going to be expressed. Funny enough, my first client with the agency was Moderna, which is a very interesting, take on advertising because it's a product you can't really sell. So, the whole idea is trying to make money for the clients. And it's like, how do you make money for something that is, a vaccine? So that was a really interesting experience. I transitioned out of working directly with accounts and now handle people operations more so. So it's kind of seeing the HR side of things. I do a lot of events as far as for our agency and for our clients. So that's kind of like the role I have currently.
Thank you for introducing you guys. And we actually have our two other guests here. So I'd like to introduce them too. So we have Brian Pressman, who is the Executive Director of Marketing Science at OMD USA. And we also have Nate Cohn, who is the Director of Global Brand Marketing at NBC Universal. And hello, guys. Thank you for joining. And I'll ask you guys the same question. So could you introduce yourself and tell us about your organization and what area of marketing you specialize in?
I guess I'll jump in. Yeah, I'm Nate Cohn. I'm actually a double Trojan, went to USC twice. I am the director of global brand marketing for NBC Universal, specifically Universal Pictures. And that means I'm a marketing generalist, kind of covering brand marketing for movies in their new release home entertainment window. So as films move out of theaters and move to transactional formats across the globe, we kind of make sure all of that still looks like the same movie that you might have heard about in theaters, and goes to market in a cohesive and compelling way.
And Brian, I'm unsure if you're able to speak if you can. I think you might be having some issues, so we'll go ahead and just move on to the next question. Brian, we'll try to work on your access to meeting and speaking as well. So going on to our next question, what are the challenges and the benefits of working in marketing, and more specifically, your branch and your specific like part of marketing? Liz, if you could get started and go in the same order.
Sure. So I guess a few of the challenges, and then did you say also benefits? Great. So I would say a few of the benefits, let's start with the good. I would say a few of the benefits are the fact that like we get like firsthand access to all of the content, which is obviously something that brought me into the industry in the first place because I love it so dearly. And then just being able to introduce all of that, all of the content to audiences like nationally, I think is really exciting, and like putting all of that together and then building fan bases and hoping that, you know, they're going to stick around on the platform or come back to watch like new shows or films or whatever it may be. So being able to like provide that to audiences is really exciting for me personally. And then obviously working with a lot of different partners is fun. You know, we're always working with like different brands or different, you know, vendors, whether it's like, you know, the Metas or the TikToks of the world, or working with like Condé Nast to put together a fun and exciting like event or activation, and like allowing audiences to like chime in and like build a relationship with the brand. That's always fun. I would say challenging. Sometimes, you know, your budgets aren't big enough for putting together the campaigns, and we do have a lot of like subscriber goals or viewership goals to hit. So we have to like make do with whatever we have and like utilize every asset we possibly can. And sometimes like shows are successful and sometimes they're not. Sometimes they have a tiny budget and do really well. Sometimes they have a big one and they don't do well. So it really also has to do with like the content itself. And there's a lot of pressure on like marketers to make sure it succeeds, but it always doesn't. So there are some, you know, hits and misses over here and there, but I would say that's what are the, like some things that come to mind for me.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I think if we're continuing in order, I think it's my turn. I think for me, so another element of my role, and I don't know how I missed that. I work for our multicultural practice over at Chiat. So a lot of my know-how goes into some of our multicultural ads. And it's not necessarily saying ads that are just made specifically for diverse audiences, but they're ads that involve diverse audiences. It's also seeing that people, you know, when we see certain brands send out the same kind of individuals, they're doing the same casting, their scripts always look the same, you know, they're hiring the same talent over and over again. We're taking a look at some of those brands and saying, hey, you know, we've noticed that you guys like this specific population. Are you guys open to putting people of color, people of different demographics, sexual orientations into some of your ads? And, you know, one of those big challenges of, you know, evolving this multicultural touch, we run into a risk of, you know, my brand in general, our agency is big on this idea of disruption. And we really want to disrupt the market in the best way possible. We want to make sure we're shaking up culture. But when you do that, you have to make sure that you're also not doing it in an offensive way. And when you're talking about multicultural branding, you want to make sure that, hey, you are touching and you're sensitive to that specific culture that you're highlighting, but you want to make sure that the language makes sense. Will people actually speak like this? Are people of color or people of certain populations actually buying products like this? How is this going to be spun? And so those ideas come in. I would say, you know, the beautiful thing about it, though, is that you see a lot of diversity within that work. You see a lot of creative ideas come back. You see some ideas that are just, you know, cutting edge because we're really trying to take into this new consideration of what the 2024 frontier looks like and how we utilize that. But I would say the challenge that comes in that is me being a project manager working on this multicultural side of things. Creatives don't love it. Like my whole role is giving feedback to creatives that spend a lot of energy and time creating these ads and these spots and certain things. And I'm like, hey, some people might find this offensive and you might not realize it, but this is why this is offensive. And it's not just to say or shoot down an idea. It's more so to give an educational spin on it and explain why this idea, can be reworked and how we can make sure that we're putting our best foot forward for those multicultural ideas.
Thank you for that. And then moving on to Nate.
Sure thing. So I guess the challenges and the benefits are kind of two sides of the same thing, which is movies content in general is a very dynamic industry, and by that I mean it changes all the time, and so you really have to stay on top of how people are consuming content, both from a perspective of how best to sell our content in, and also how best to get our ads in front of the people that need to see them. And so that's a constant learning process and constant reinvention of our processes that really doesn't have an end. And so that's a challenge, but it's also something that kind of keeps the job fun and fresh over time. So I'd say that's one big one. The other big one is stakeholders. So when you're dealing with content, you are somewhat to what Matthew was saying, you're dealing with a lot of creatives, not just on the advertising creative side, but also often filmmakers who have spent, half a decade working on a project, and know it, much more intimately and better than I ever will for the, small amount of time that I'm entrusted with marketing it. And one thing that's pretty unique, I think, about entertainment is no matter how well reasoned the justification might be for something I want to do marketing wise, if the director of the movie doesn't go for it, he's going to win out. I think that's the right thing to do in a lot of cases because we're dealing with a piece of art. It should represent the director's vision. But it also is a constant and interesting challenge, particularly if you're interested in going into any sort of entertainment marketing. There's a creative vision that you have to work with.
Thank you for your answer. And I think, Brian, do you want to give your audio a chance and see if it works now?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. So just going back, could you introduce yourself really briefly and what you do specifically in marketing and also about your organization? And then going on to the second question, challenges and benefits of working in this industry.
Yeah, and so sorry about the difficulties. Like I've actually never received like this kind of weird Zoom authentication message. But yeah, so I'm using my phone kind of like the old days. So nice to meet everyone. My name is Brian Pressman. I work at OMD, which is, I heard there's someone here from Chiat/Day, so that's under the same holding company as well. But I work at OMD, which is a media agency, one of the largest media agencies in the world. However, I actually work in the marketing science area of the company, which is quite different. So we specialize in helping advertisers understand how well their ads perform. So we also provide information on who is who's interacting with the ads as well as the performance. Also, my team does quite a bit of data science these days. So a lot of us spend tons of time in Python and SQL, which I find extremely interesting. So again, a totally different area of marketing than the other folks on the call. In terms of the challenges that that our group faces, they're very different. For us, we have challenges in big data, and specifically around privacy laws nowadays, because it's getting more and more difficult to do to basically track performance across the various platforms. So we spend a lot of our time these days trying to fix those tracking problems. We also spend a lot of time in testing as well. So we do lots of A/B, multivariate, and match market testing. So again, like the challenge for us, is how to kind of connect all of the different data points that we have into kind of a medium that that layman people can understand, and our clients can understand, and more importantly, our clients can use that data to basically, have better performance of their products. Hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you so much. So those are just our introductory questions. And now I want to give our attendees an opportunity to ask questions. So like I said earlier, if you do have a question, please use the raise hand function and I will call on you to ask. And please do unmute your mic when I do so. And these questions can either be directed at a specific panelist or just a general question, and any of our panelists can pick it up if they find that it relates to them. So yeah, you can't ask questions in the chat, but I would prefer if you did use your hand. So Massimo, could you want to start us off and ask your question?
Hi, my name is Massimo Soto. I'm a production student in the film school, and my question is for the people dealing with the streaming services on the more like film side. What do you think the future of streaming looks like, and the career of marketing in streaming for the future?
Nate, I saw you smiling. Do you want to take that, or you want me to take it?
No, you go ahead. I've been yakking for too long, and you started with a very big question. So
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's like almost philosophical at this point. I mean, if you guys have, looked at the trades and all of the advertising websites and publishers and all of that, you will see that there's a lot going on with the streamers right now. A lot of them are talking about mergers. A lot of them are taking away content from the platforms, and it is definitely very interesting time. I will give you that. Do I think though that like streaming is going to go away? Absolutely not. I think it's just going to continue to like develop. I do foresee like some companies joining forces at this point. I do think there's always going to be a place for marketing and advertising, because that's how we essentially reach our consumers, especially when it's with new content. And we're going to be utilizing all of the like levers and brand history that we have to, get viewership there. But like, for example, Paramount Plus is part of all of Paramount Global, and there are many, many brands, and we even have Pluto TV underneath us, which is like another streaming, right, platform. We have Paramount Pictures, we have BET, Comedy Central, CBS. So no matter what, we're going to try to get those audiences. I don't think it's going away. I think it's safe to say there is room for marketing and advertising, whether you decide to go with the brand side or if you want to work agency side. I've done both. I think there's pros and cons to each side. But yeah, I hope that answered your question, because it's a really interesting time right now.
Yeah, I think that's you nailed it as far as I'm concerned. I think the only thing I'd add to that is just from a function perspective. I mean, all the streamers that I have any sort of knowledge of, which is not a ton of them, but we all kind of talk a little bit. They have a lot of marketing people. So the discipline's not going away. I think some of the ways in which those marketing people work is a little different than maybe, entertainment marketing has run in the past. There's a little bit more of an editorial sort of bent to some of it, because you're dealing with, how a piece of content should appear on platforms sometimes, and often they're kind of bidding for their own space in a way. But the skill set, taking a piece of content and saying, first of all, what's the essential idea of this? What's going to make someone want to watch it? And then figuring out a way to communicate that to the people that it matters to, that skill set's still going to be the same. It's just a matter of the tools and the medium that you're doing it in.
Yeah, thank you both for your question and for your answers. And I guess moving on, Julian, looks like you have your hand raised if you want to ask a question.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to ask this question to those who've had experience on the agency side. As an aspiring account executive or account manager working with clients one day, What do you think is the, the number one or, top three traits to have, going into a position like that where you're, encouraged to work with clients or what, recruiters might look for in a position like that?
I could jump in, working the account side of things. Honestly, it's attention to detail. Obviously, these client meetings, sometimes they run long, sometimes, the clients don't know what they want, and, they expect you to keep up with all the know-how of whatever has been said. And, sometimes clients change their minds at the drop of a dime. So attention to detail helps you like really succeed in that role because you're able to pull the pieces together. A direct form of communication is necessary because once again, like I said, these meetings can already sometimes you can go weeks without seeing a client. You can talk to a client every single day. But you really want to get straight to the point rather than, a lot of fluff and, you want to seem very confident and know what you're talking about. That really kind of really shapes that. And then ultimately, you just really want to be able to be authentic. Every brand is different. Every brand is going to have their own know-how, and understanding how that brand operates is really a selling point, in my opinion.
This is Brian.
Yeah.
I'll just add to that I think being a good problem solver, because and I mean on the marketing science side, I'm not a client services specialist. However, I interact with clients every day, and you really have to figure out different ways to solve the problems that they're asking you. So like the way I do that is, you have to be a really good listener first, and just understand sort of like what questions your clients have and what problems they're trying to solve. I would also say that another skill that I think is really important is figuring out how to say yes. A lot of folks on my team, we get asked like really complicated questions, and sometimes we're quick to say like, oh, we can't do that. Whereas that's not the correct way to do it. The correct way in client services, I think, is to figure out the things that you can do and present that to your clients rather than focusing on what you can't do. Hope that helps.
Well, thank you so much, you guys. And keep going. We can keep going. And Selena, your hand is raised if you want to ask your question.
Yeah, hi. So since you guys graduated from USC, I was wondering if there were any USC classes that you guys might still remember that like stood out to you that provided you with specific tools that you still use in your current job, and if so, which courses would you recommend?
Gosh, I was there so long ago. They probably don't exist anymore. I'll also say in the undergrad, I was in a film school. So I was mostly doing, I assume like some version of 310 and 290 and all that stuff still exists. But I was mostly focused on that bit, which maybe goes to, I saw a question come through like popping up in the chat about how to get into marketing. My answer is a little bit try everything else and learn along the way, and then you'll kind of end up there. But yeah, not a super useful answer. But I think the takeaway is marketing, you're dealing with people, you're dealing with consumers, and so anything that kind of gets you more attuned to how people communicate is helpful and useful.
For me, I think with if it had been like a class that stuck out, at least in my head, I don't know if Professor Stacy Smith is still teaching, but like any class with her was kind of like really like one of my favorite classes in Annenberg, because the idea of communication and culture, that idea of how culture thrives, and that plays a like large role, culture in general, whether it's agency culture, whether it's cultures outside of our department, that plays a huge role in a lot of things I do. So anything with Stacy Smith is kind of like what. Now, don't ask me what I got in that class. I can't even remember, but I did pass and I did graduate. So that's all that matters. But yeah, any class that has Stacy Smith in it, I think is definitely a great take.
I actually did my undergrad at LMU, so I can't speak about my undergraduate experience, but in terms of my graduate experience, I would say any of the classes that had, you know, data analysis or statistics or any of that, really like were helpful, especially if you are working on figuring out your audiences, like who you're going to be marketing to, and then utilizing different like research tools. Depending on where you land, you might have your own research team, you know, at the network who helps you pull all of these like competitive reports or how the show is going to be taken in from different audiences. You might also work with your agency to come up with that. And like, depending on where you land, like you might be in all of these tools like MRI, Simmons, or there might be like some proprietary tools. So really looking at how like audiences and looking at the analysis, that's really going to help you in the long run. I would say that kind of helps me like differentiate from some of my colleagues was also having that like background, I guess. That is really good. And then any type of like, to like Nate's point as well, like any type of like communication courses, right? So like any type of organizational communication, learning how to talk to other people. There are some people you're not going to want to work with, but you have to work with, and like there's different working styles that you need to adapt to as well. So just any type of group work that you're also doing that you really don't feel like doing, you know, and you're carrying the weight of the team or whatnot. All of those things apply in the workspace in the future, I would say.
Thank
This is
you.
Brian from the marketing science side. And apologies, like I actually also did not attend USC, but I have actually hired a couple of folks from the graduate school for various teams that I've been on. I know USC, like the business school, has some really good data visualization as well as like data storytelling courses. And I found that the couple of USC grads that I've worked with have taken those courses, which is great because for those that didn't have those skills, you know, we have to teach that when you arrive. But you know, being able to use things like Excel and PowerPoint are pretty, I think most people have those skills coming out of school nowadays. But for, you know, for marketing science to really excel and be a part of the advanced analytics group, we have folks that, you know, come to us who know Python, they know SQL, they also, you know, might know some other programming languages. I think someone mentioned statistics for us is extremely helpful. We've also had a lot of success with folks who are really good in math as well. So if you take advanced mathematics classes, so like applied mathematics, that actually works quite well for marketing science.
Thank you. It looks like you guys had a very wide range of like classes and experiences, which is great. I'm actually going to go to a question in the chat from Lindsay. So this is for anyone. How do you recommend getting into the marketing industry, and what were your personal steps? And what would you recommend for someone with minimal experience so far?
All right, I'll jump into the silence again. The first thing I'd say is look, I think this group is mostly undergrads. So, you know, to the extent that anyone has experience within this group, I know you're doing some internships and that, and that's all great to kind of learn how to function in an office environment. But really, you know, anybody who's hiring anybody straight out of undergrad for experience is not very good at hiring people. You know, you guys are all 100% potential at this point. And so to me, like looking at entry-level roles, if you can demonstrate that you have some skills and some interests that you have pursued sort of on your own volition, you know, you're a self-starter, that you're willing to learn more and you're willing to learn more on the job. You know, those are some of the best ways to make yourself just an attractive candidate for any sort of entry-level role. And then you're going to learn so much on the job, and also the process of marketing anything is going to change so much over the first few years you're working, that you know, being able to be that quick study is going to be your best friend.
Yes, to Nate's point, I was someone that was like that was very involved with a lot of community service, a lot of social clubs, professional clubs, but no job I've ever had post graduation has ever asked me about any of those things. They don't, you're clay to them, you are literally moldable, in the best way possible. So obviously, all those things are great. All those things look beautiful. They make you very well rounded. They add that flair to you. But jobs, they like it kind of like they want to be able to mold you. They want to be able to see this uncut gem and make it to what they need to. I know. And then a lot of them offer programs outside of internships, outside of, those aspects that allow for those changes. I know over at Chiat, we offer what is called our Young Blood program. And it's not necessarily an internship, it's a full-time like job. You work directly with projects, but it's the difference between this and an internship is it's really made for people that don't sometimes have an advertising background, that don't really specialize in, any of the skill sets. We want to see what other skills do you have and how can you show them in the advertising work. And I think that's what's great about marketing in general. It's just like, hey, how creative are you? And not necessarily creative with coming up with campaigns, but it's how creative can you be and resourceful more so? Like, let me see what you can do. And I think as long as you can kind of prove that, whether in conversation, whether on paper, I think those things will really matter.
Yeah, and I think I guess once you get to an interview, right, you've made it through the door, which is like amazing. Like kudos to you to already getting there. But when you're coming to the interview, like anytime I've had to hire like assistants on the agency side, new to the team, or like, assistants on the brand side as well, the one thing I want to see mostly is that you've done your research and like you're enthusiastic, right? Because we all know like this is going to be like your first job, so you're going to learn like on the job, as Nate said. But do your research. If you already know which brand you're going after, right? Or if you already know which account you're going to be on the agency side, figure out who the competitors are. Check out any like other campaigns that the agency has worked on. You could bring that up to see like, oh, like I'm actually interested in this. Ask them what their challenges are and just like show them that you've done the work as well. Sometimes I've had like interviews where I've been like, what's your favorite, show? Or they're like, oh, I really like, so like, I just want to make sure that you've done the research, because that's going to show me that you're also going to like do the work when you make it to the other side as well.
Well, thank you for that. And I kind of hope that kind of addresses your question too, Lauren. Our panelists did mention some things about not having that experience, but what you should be going into interviews expecting. So I'm going to move back to our raised hands. And Yusra, if you wanted to ask your question.
Yeah, hi, my name is Yusra. I'm a master's student at USC Annenberg in marketing communications, and I'll be graduating in a few months, and I'm looking to apply to jobs specifically in entertainment marketing. And my professors have been talking about working for an agency first rather than applying directly to a brand. And I'm not sure which route I will go into, but I heard that there's pros and cons for working at an agency versus in a brand. I mean, with a brand. And I was wondering if any of you guys had your own pros and cons to share.
I think we're always all courteous to each other. Like no one wants to like jump the gun. I've never worked directly with a brand, like just a brand. I've worked with brands obviously within the agency. I just feel, but based off of my experience so far, just with working in the agency life, it just seems like you kind of get your feet wet a little more with the agency. It's not like a loyalist view. You kind of see what all the moving pieces are sometimes. Granted, when you're working on a project, you only see that project. But I just feel like you have the option to see and hear about what other teams are doing, what's working well for others. You know, when you're working on a brand, it's really just that brand. And my agency, we have Gatorade, we have Fisher Price, Levi, a variety of different accounts, and seeing how each one of those accounts has different needs, we all share what's working for those accounts. And so with that, you kind of get a good sense in, different kind of brands and different type of industries. So that's why I think I'm pro agency. I couldn't see if I ever left Shy, I couldn't see myself going specifically for a brand. But I think for some people it works better. It's kind of smaller when you're working on the just a brand side of things, obviously depending on the brand, but it's a little kind of more intimate than, working agency lifestyle.
I would say, like, to Matthew's point, when you're on the agency side, you could definitely diversify your experience in terms of like the types of brands you're working on. I kind of took, I would say, a different route, which is not usually the case. I started my career on the brand side. So I went from graduating undergrad to Disney's media strategy team. And I was there for about 2.5 years or so. And I felt like I did not have that like strong media agency experience that my own leaders had. And as much as you as much as you try to learn it, when it's the media agency that's helping you put the media plan or media campaign together, you could obviously learn it on the job. But for me, I really wanted to understand like the nuts and bolts of putting a media plan together. So I actually had those conversations like with my like leadership teams, and I actually left the brand side and went to the agency side, which is like controversial, I would say. If you talk to a lot of people, but I would like never give up that. Like learning the agency side, I think has made me a better marketer, like moving forward. So yeah, I did that, and I was on the agency side for a few years, and I really learned the ropes. And I feel like now I could be like a better partner to the agency that I work with currently. So yeah, I think basically pros and cons to each side. I would say pros is like truly learning how to put the media plan together, how to develop relationships with clients, how to be able to talk to stakeholders. You really, really hone in on your presentation skills, which is something that's really big on both sides, but trying to be a public speaker is really important. So I would say, try to build your confidence, and the more you do it, the better you'll get. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say there's like cons. I would say it's a lot of hours on the agency side. All-nighters with your team, but if you're all like really young and just getting started together, you develop really great relationships that will like last you years. And yeah, I would say those are like, it's a lot of long hours. You might burn out at one point, and you want to maybe switch to another account, and all of these things happen. But I think it's like all part of the process, and it's going to make you stronger in the long run as well.
I would just add that if you started an agency, I think it gives you more exposure, as others have said. It gives you more exposure to like the different roles and different jobs within marketing. And then I think there's also a bit more freedom probably to move around. So if you start as kind of like a marketing associate doing strategy and planning, but you decide, well, I want to do more activation, I think you have a little bit more leeway to make that transition. Whereas if you start at an advertiser on a brand, you might not have that flexibility, just because there won't be as many diversity of roles over on the actual advertiser side. That's just my opinion.
And I completely agree with that as well. Like, for example, and when I was on the agency side, I started on like brand strategy and the comms team. And then I really wanted to work on digital. So then I moved over to the digital teams and like learned that and put it under my belt. And then I moved over to like TV as well, and like became more of like an integrated planner. But then you could also join like investment teams or marketing science teams. as well. So yeah, you do get to diversify your experience a little bit more than on the brand side. So good point there, Brian.
Well, thank you for that. And then we'll keep moving on. So, Alyssa, if you want to ask your question.
Hi, I'm Alyssa. Thank you guys all for being here tonight. My question was, are there any strategies, tactics, or trends that you think are on the rise or becoming popular that an entry-level employee would need to know in the marketing industry?
I'm sorry, can you ask your question one more time?
No problem. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. My question was, are there any strategies or tactics that are rising or trending in the marketing industry that you think would be important for an entry-level employee to know?
I think if
I
I
would say
went,
like, oh, go ahead. No, you go.
this is why we were trying to be courteous. We all knew that was going to happen eventually. That's too many Teams meetings and too many Zoom meetings already. I was just gonna say if I had to think about like a trend, that I think would be next level to really help someone like that is entering this field right now, try to really figure out AI. AI is obviously a big thing. It's always talked about. It is constantly like it is a gift and a curse. And I feel like, if someone is knowledgeable or really paying attention to the trends that are following within that space, I think that's kind of like where, some success could be. If I just had to like, if you have any knowledge about it, like how it works, the pros, the cons, I think that would be really like, next level at this point because, some people that are in, the obviously those that are interested know, but some people in advertising, they're not paying attention to it. There's some people in marketing don't care about it, or don't see it as a threat, but in reality it is. So I think if you can like really figure out how to foster AI and use it to your advantage, I think, there's some world of damage that can be done from it.
I have a good one that I think is not necessarily oh, sorry, Matthew, did you want to go?
So let's go, Brian, and then we can have you go right after Nate.
Cool.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I think like the common one that people talk about is kind of like the transition from like traditional linear TV to connected TV like YouTube TV or Hulu. And I think it's very common for people to think that, okay, we can just totally abandon, old school TV because everyone is a cord cutter, but it's actually, there's still actually a lot of value in like traditional linear TV and even radio too. So I think like thinking that through and not just taking like kind of the easy, oh, we're gonna skip linear and just go to kind of the modern connected TV area. I think that's like what everyone's instinct is. But actually, for a lot of brands, there's still a lot of value on the traditional media side, and kind of being able to articulate that and think about that into a strategy, I think is something that is really valuable. And also, like if you can kind of crack that nut, it really sets you apart.
I think that's a good one. I think another thing that this is not even really a trend because I think it has a lot of staying power, but something that probably is good to keep in mind and something that you guys can really sort of evangelize as you get out there in the workforce is thinking along the lines of multicultural marketing first, in the sense that a long time ago, it was like multicultural marketing may have been considered sort of an add-on to a sort of traditional marketing plan. Culture is so sort of, and people's identities are so sort of things that we're all aware of now, and we've also atomized into so many different sort of niche audiences that if you're not thinking about you know, having to market to a whole bunch of subcultures, you know, even just sort of like behaviorally out there, you are, you know, going to have, I think, a tough time applying some of the sort of old tried and true tactics. A little garbled there, but thinking multiculturally first, I think, is an important sort of I think paradigm shift that's happened, and you guys should definitely, I think, be a part of that.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I would just like add to like Nate and Brian's points about really making sure that's like your first move forward, because the audiences are multicultural, right? Like we're already in that place, so it's no longer just a line item on a campaign of like hitting this audience group. And then to Brian's point, I think that it's important to remember the tried and true tactics. And we could like go on and test like newer technologies or whatnot while we're still utilizing the tried and true as well. So like when he was talking about TV, like utilizing linear spots as well as like OTT, as well as ACR. So it's like putting them all together and molding a like a campaign to reach your audience. But yeah, those are just like a few things I would look out for.
Thank you for that. And then moving on, Kwayesh, looks like your hand is raised.
Hi. Yeah, my name is Kwayesh and I'm a sophomore studying economics and data science. So my question to you guys today is, what do new employees typically find surprising once they first step into the marketing industry? Is there anything we should expect or prepare for in advance? What's your advice on that?
So if you're coming, like since you mentioned, you know, you're studying a little bit of data science, I think like when I see new graduates like come into an agency, there's a big learning curve, understanding the kind of the nuances of how media data is structured. Because, you know, for example, like you could already know SQL, you could know R, you could know Python, but the media data is very different than kind of like a traditional like corporate data set. So it takes a while for someone that comes to us to kind of learn the ropes and sort of learn how that's different. And then also there's the whole you know, media and creative aspect of, you know, the strategy and sort of why we do things the way we do. That takes a little bit of learning, at least on the marketing science side.
I think that's, you know, to kind of add to that and take it a little further. I think you come out of school with a lot of, you know, theoretical concepts and maybe some techniques, you know, in your toolkit. And I think what might surprise a lot of folks when you get onto an actual job, whether, you know, whatever part of whatever industry you get into, is the amount to which everything is kind of being built as it goes. And so you will have opportunity to apply those techniques. But at the same time, if you're, you know, coming out and expecting to find, you know, to the point of data, like the data coming in from a various service to be clean, or the services to be able to talk to each other, or, you know, the agency that's working with, you know, one specific part of a campaign to be able to even share data with the agency that's working with another part of the campaign. You know, that is often, I think, very surprising. Because you look at you know, a big corporate marketing campaign, it looks like maybe a well-oiled machine from the outside. We do a lot of work to make it seem like that from the outside, and sometimes on the inside, it's held together with more duct tape than you would expect. So you know, I think that's where knowing all those techniques, having that toolkit, but then also being resourceful and able to apply those techniques and toolkits in some places that maybe you didn't cover in class, you know, becomes very helpful.
It looks like we only have time for maybe one or two more questions. So, Sarah, if you'd want to ask yours.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I wanted to thank you guys for coming, and I just had a quick question of kind of social media, and I was wondering how you guys perceive the evolving role of influencers in social media and the promotion of products and services across, I don't know, like different industries, and what implications do you think this has for marketing strategies in today's digital landscape?
Influencers. So I mean, with influencers, there's pros and cons, right, to everything. When it comes to like social media, you might also have you might have like your own social media arm, right? Let's like not forget that as well at a certain on the brand side. And then there are also multiple like social media agencies that you could work with who basically host a bunch of different influencers. Something to keep in mind when, evaluating if an influencer, you want to know what like they're going to do for your brand, right? And you also want to make sure that they align authentically. Sometimes there are influencers that have like these giant, audiences, like millions upon millions. But they might not be right. And you might want to go with like a micro influencer versus a macro because they also have a lot more engagement, and a lot more like comments and whatnot, and like an actual true authentic relationship with their audience versus someone who's going to just be like, there's a new show on Paramount, please watch, now streaming. So you have to also be very careful about brand safety before we actually move forward with any influencers. We are doing our due diligence, looking through their past, posts or anything that they've, done or whatnot. And we're working heavily with our legal teams to ensure like who's owning the content, how long would it be up for? So you have to be like very careful when you're doing it, and you have to make sure that no matter what happens, the brand that you're working on is not going to like come out in a negative image, and that it's actually going to bring like positivity to the actual product. I don't think influencers are going away, but I think that brands are becoming a lot more mindful of how we're utilizing those relationships. But Nate, I see you nodding a lot, so I'll let you chime in.
Oh, no, I was just nodding because I agree. Yeah, I think it's to your point, risk, and I'm sure a good amount of the dollars I've put into influencers have been wasted, but I'm not sure which part. To paraphrase a famous quote about ad dollars. But if it's where the eyeballs are, it's kind of where we have to be playing. So engaging in that space, is something that'll be around for the foreseeable future until something better comes along.
I think we have time for one last question. Alan, if you wanted to ask.
All right, hello. This question is for everyone. If you don't have an answer, no worries. So like what piece of media, be it book, journal, campaign, do you find personally inspiring? You think everyone like should be able to like get some ideas away from that can like help with their own their own career in marketing and professionalism? But yeah.
So I'm gonna choose.
Go.
Yeah, I'm gonna choose Barbie because I used to work on the Mattel account, but I think kind of the idea of like basically creating a movie to help market your product is just a genius, and it just worked. Like things like that really work well if they kind of click. I can't exactly explain like why that one worked, but some of them flop. But yeah, the recent Barbie movie to me is like the perfect example of the best campaign ever.
Thank you.
Going back to you, Liz, if you had insight.
I'm sorry, let me just see if I understand. Are you asking for where you can grab inspiration from, or like a certain campaign that what was like what I think would be successful?
either or, like, is there a book you've read that you found really influential to your own, the way you approach problems in marketing, or it'd be a campaign that you found inspiring?
Not necessarily a book. I feel like the industry shifts so quickly that like by the time a book has gone to print, there's like 8 more new things that have been like added to the plate. I would say if you're going to read any like books, I would go for more like general ones about career in general and like how you become a better leader or a better, colleague or whatnot. But in terms of things to check out, I would say like Adweek, Ad Age, DigiDay, Synopsis, so the trades, if you want to really be in entertainment industry, those should be like your first go-to. Constantly like I'm also looking at what our competitors are doing all the time. I'm looking at what they're winning awards for. What was something like really cool, a new activation that they just did. Something like just today, if you guys have seen, there's the new show with Sofia Vergara on Netflix. I think it's called Griselda. But just today, my boss was flying to New York, and on her way, the airport, there was a tray. And the airport tray where you put your, carry-on and whatnot. It said, this is your last chance to take it out. And if you know what that Netflix show is about, that was really fun and smart, and the creative was amazing. So like all of it all made sense and came together for like a brilliant tactic, right? So just always like looking at what your competitors are doing too, and just like staying up to date on the industry. But yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna co-sign exactly what Liz is talking about. Like literally for our agency, we do what is called Green with Envy. And we do it as a way of like not comparing ourselves, but we really are checking out what competitors or other agencies are doing and like in our envious. Like, how can we do this? Why didn't we think of this? Like, so we actually challenge ourselves to do this like at least once a month, to really like highlight other spots that we're like, damn, that was a really good ad. Like, and then obviously, for advertising and marketing, Sunday is a dream day. It is every advertiser's dream to make sure their spots are in the right place for the big game on Sunday. So literally we're gonna have like a big powwow right after, like, okay, what spots stuck out? What are those spots, that are winning? What are the spots that are like, dang, that was a really good one? It takes kind of the fun out of it now because some of the spots get dropped, early before the Super Bowl. It used to be great just to watch them during like the game, but now they're kind of out there early. But it's still like amazing to like, really compare yourself and making sure that you're staying on culture's like toes and saying, hey, I know what's happening right now.
For sure. Thank you.
Well, that's all the time we have for audience Q&A today. So I just want to thank our panelists for taking their time out of the day to come here and give all this amazing insight to our students who are, maybe just curious about marketing and advertising or hoping to pursue a career in it. And I hope that you guys did get a better understanding of the industry. And Industry Insights is a part of a series of panels. So we will be having sessions on federal government and global security, health and medicine, and visual and narrative arts, if that is anything you're interested in. And you can find more details about our other panels and other Career Center events on Connect SC, as well as at careers.usc.edu. And just before we close it off, I want to ask if our panelists have any final words or thoughts, or maybe their information that they want to share with our students here today.
I mean, thank you guys for taking a Wednesday night to do this with us. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn. I feel like there's still a lot of hands up and questions out. So, I'm here to chat if you need.
I would just add, don't get discouraged, because I remember when I graduated from undergrad, the economy wasn't doing super well, and it was really hard to get a first job. And I feel like that's kind of a similar situation now. So I would say, don't get discouraged, especially if you can't get, the job that you want, because, sometimes career progression is not a straight line.
I would echo that because it was kind of like the same thing when I was graduating a long time ago. But I would say if you haven't already, try to secure an internship. Really utilize your career center, try to make connections with like, guest speakers or whatnot. And join any clubs on campus that you guys might have. I didn't do undergrad at USC, so I'm not sure if there's like a marketing club or like a PR club or whatnot, just to show that you're really passionate about the field and you're like, active on campus as well, because all of those like skills apply. And yeah, that's all I could say, but thank you for, listening. We're happy to be here for you guys.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having us. I think it's just amazing. And I really don't want to piggyback off of the last two things, but they're absolutely right. You're talking to someone who has had more different careers than anyone else I know. But it's always about progressing and finding what's the right fit for you.
Yeah, so just again, thank you everyone for coming, especially thank you to our panelists. And with that, we will be concluding our first Industry Insights event. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.